every petrol head wants a hypercar. They're the fastest, most powerful and best looking cars ever made. So how do you choose which one to buy? Well, most billionaire petrol heads don't have to choose, they just buy all of them. But how do you choose which hypercar to get if you only have a one-car garage at your Monaco penthouse? Well, in this video, I'll give you my verdict on 5 of the greatest hypercars ever made. To help you make the right choice, I will do more than 200 miles an hour in a Bugatti Chiron Supersport 300 Plus on the German Autobahn. I'm going to drive an AMG 1 on the Nürburgring racetrack. I'll also go flat out in a Hennessy Venom F5, but with the help of the man who built it. And I'll scare myself while driving a 1200 horsepower track car with insane active aero in the wet. And of course, I'm going to max out an Aston Martin Valkyrie on a racetrack. Buy, sell, carwow. Before we get into that, which of these hypercars looks the best? Well, let's start with the most extreme version of the Bugatti Chiron, the Supersport. So, I don't know if you can tell already, it's slightly longer than the standard car for improved aerodynamics. For instance, it's allowed them to increase the tear-off area, which is the distance between this part of the car and this part of the car, by 44%, and the distance between these two parts affect the amount of drag. So this car has less drag than the standard Chiron. Also, it's got a bigger rear diffuser for more downforce, and because of that bigger rear diffuser, they've had to put the exhaust pipes vertically like that, rather than horizontally. Let me just check something though. I've got my Rimac stick of truth here. Yes, that's all real. Yeah, it's all real. Anyway, let's move down the side of the car. So as with the normal Chiron, you have 21-inch alloys at the back as standard and 20s at the front, though the Supersport has its own unique design of alloy wheel. You also get Chiron Supersport here on the fuel filler cap, something you'll be seeing a lot of, no doubt, if you have this car. Another feature is this: the Supersport gets these special air vents here. In fact, there's 9 holes here in the wing on each side, just like on the EB110 Supersport. And let me just check those. Yes, 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 look at all that. Yeah, vouched by the Rimac stick of truth yet again. Now here at the front, you've got bigger air curtains as well, bigger air intakes, and a larger front splitter for more downforce here at the front as well. And as a result, it all looks a little bit meaner, especially in this black. Sort of looks like the Batmobile. So if Bruce Wayne should own a Bugatti, what sort of hypercar would the Joker drive? Well, it could be something more like this, the Zenvo TSR-S. So it's not only designed to look mean, but its looks serve a purpose because there's so much aero going on. You've got this huge front splitter there, and this big intake there sends the air in there, and then it exits here over the bonnet, and it helps push the nose down for downforce and added grip when you're going very, very quickly, which obviously this car can. Here at the side, there's even more aero going on, and none of the vents are fake. So these vents here are part of smoothing the airflow over the wheels. These vents here release high pressure from the wheel arches. Got these huge side skirts, which you've got to be careful not to tread on, otherwise that could be very expensive. These vents here feed air into the intercoolers. This vent here helps feed air into the engine bay, cool the engine, and the scoop on the roof feeds air direct into the engine intake for maximum power. The other things to note at the side are the wheels. 20 at the front, 21 at the rear. You've got centre locking nuts as well, so you can take the wheels off quickly and put them back on again when on a track. Speaking of being on a track, you've got Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 R tyres. Brilliant on a circuit, probably not so good on a road when it's damp and slippery like today. Here at the back, you've got these holes here, so you can check how much tread is left on your tyres. Only joking, that is to relieve pressure in the rear wheel arches. You've also got this massive rear diffuser and a flat underfloor for improved aero. Then there's this huge wing. Now I'm going to give you a bit more information on this later, but it can provide 325 kilos of downforce. Now that does affect this car's top speed. You see, you can get a more GT version of this Zenvo. It's called the TS1, and it has a top speed of 240 miles an hour, whereas this track-focused TSR-S, its top speed is 202 miles an hour. The next car on my list is the Hennessy Venom F5. It looks just as leery as the Zenvo TSR-S, but instead of high downforce wings, the Venom takes a very different approach.
I love the front splitter, it's so aggressive. The design of the nose with these vents helps smooth the airflow of the roof of the car. Every vent, in fact, is real. It serves a purpose like these, the front of the wheels to smooth airflow down the side. Speaking of the wheels, 19 inches at the front, 20s at the rear. I love these door mirrors, like antennae on a wasp. Huge air intake here to feed air into the engine. Everything on this car serves a purpose, but yet it also looks beautiful. In fact, it's won the Red Dot Award for Automotive Design. Now, in case you don't know, Red Dot, in fact, I didn't know because I'm ill-informed. Anyway, Red Dot is like the Grammys for industrial design, and you can see why this one is truly stunning. You see this piece of carbon fibre here? It actually extends into the diffuser, which runs partway underneath the car. It's actually the biggest single piece of milled carbon fibre on any road car. Now you might be wondering what the heck this handle's for. Well, that's because this is a development car, and you have to have certain safety systems like this on development cars because they've not been fully signed off. Interestingly though, this is still a customer car. A customer has paid full price for a development vehicle because they want to have the very first Hennessy Venom F5, and they're letting Hennessy take it all around Europe and show people such as me and let me drive it. I think that is really cool, and I thank them for letting me drive their car.
What if you want your hypercar to look like it belongs on a racetrack? Well, the AMG One could be just the thing.
Right, let's talk about the design of this car because it is really quite incredible. So you've got these massive air vents here, and the air is channeled in and then separated using this section here. So bits go down the side of the car, bits go down the middle of the car, then exactly down the middle into that scoop. So they're separating the air out to maximise the aero and the use for that air. More on that in a moment. Check this out, right? There is no normal Mercedes badge. It's sprayed on like on a Formula One car because you don't want drag from a badge. Alloy wheels, 19 inches at the front, 20 at the back. They're forged magnesium, so they're strong and lightweight. And of course, you've got carbon ceramic brakes. Moving down the side, look at this exposed carbon fibre, just like on the Formula One car. And then you've got these ducts here, so that air has come over the top, it's been separated, and some of it goes in here into the oil cooler, help cool the engine and the gearbox. Moving around the back, loads more aero going on here. We've got a big rear diffuser, once again for downforce. Huge central exhaust pipe, like on a Formula One car, and you've got some extra little pipes there as well. This shark fin here aids stability at high speed, but the coolest thing is this. You can put the car from this road mode into track mode for maximum downforce. So look at this. It sinks by 30 millimeters. These vents over the wheel arches open up to allow airflow out of there. And then look at the huge spoiler that pops up for massive amounts of downforce. See this extra bit here? When you're going in a straight at 80 kilometers an hour, you can press a DRS mode and it'll move in, reduce the drag. Same with the air vents at the front to help you slip through the air and get your maximum top speed. Then when you come into a corner, turn in, this will pop out again, once again for maximum downforce. Look at it. It is a thing of beauty.
But that's not the only hypercar with loads of race car styling. In many ways, the Aston Martin Valkyrie is even wilder.
I'm here with Miles Nürnberger. Miles is the design director at Aston Martin. He's responsible for the look of this beautiful car. Well, I say you're responsible for it, but so too is Adrian Newey from Red Bull Formula One, who designs all their winning race cars, right?
Yeah.
And there's two elements to the design of this. There's the aero element, then there's the look itself, which you're more involved in. Isn't that correct?
It is, yeah. The real trick with this car was combining those two things together. So Adrian's aero concept and making sure it still felt like an Aston Martin. And obviously we had to push the boundaries quite a lot on that because we normally make front engine cars and this is something very, very different.
It is very different. So let's start off by talking through that aero.
I'll do my best. Sorry, Adrian, for the explanation. The way they will look at a car in F1 is from front to back. So they're thinking about what the air does here and what do I need to do when I get to the back of the car. So, I mean, obviously starting on the front wing, you've got 4 elements to the front wing. Top element is active, but actually all the bodywork is actually wing shaped and is actually generating downforce. So normally you've got a bonnet of a car. It doesn't generate downforce or do anything.
It hides the engine.
Yeah. But this one does, and that's why there's that massive hole
there.
If you don't have that hole, the air stagnates, it can't do what it needs to do. So that hole basically lets the system breathe. And at first we were like, oh dear God, there's a
big hole there.
There's a big hole there. But actually you soon realise, how cool is it? You can see that F1-like suspension, and you can see the wheel as well. So when you're in the car, in the cockpit, it is really unique, the view out of the car.
And once the air's in there, what's happening? Obviously, the wheel's spinning, so it's going to disrupt the airflow.
So it disrupts the airflow. So imagine it's almost like a massive motor, and basically you get dirty air off.
We don't want dirty air.
You don't want dirty air. It's turbulent. So that fin on the side that you see there basically separates.
All right, so the dirty air gets jettisoned out the side.
Yep.
The good, and it's like smooth air, goes more on the inside.
Importantly, in there to feed the radiators and cool the car.
So in there?
Yeah. The other bit of air that's coming through there is actually going into the diffuser.
Oh, under there, yeah. So I'm splitting it again.
Yeah. Then you've got another vortex generator on the side.
So what's a vortex? It's spinning air, right?
The best way to explain is the tube basically encourages the air to spin.
And why do you want spinning air?
There's two things. One is, again, controlling rear tyre weight, the dirty air off the rear tyre. The other one is air either wants to roll under the car and disturb the diffuser, or the other way round, and that'll depend on the particular speed or state of the airflow at a given time. So that basically helps seal the car and make sure the flow is always stable. And if you look at modern F1 aero, all the barge boards, that's what they're doing. They're creating basically invisible walls controlling the direction and flow regimes of the air around the car.
So what's happening at the back? Just from a visual perspective, this does look amazing.
You can crawl in if you want. But
you can literally, you can actually crawl underneath the car. If I lost a bit of weight, I'll get all the way under there.
So diffusers obviously working very hard. There's vortices generated at the front of the car that travel the whole length of the car, basically. And there's little bits like elements on the side here. And again, controlling the rear tyre and basically keeping that area clean and generating all the downforce.
And you've got some flaps actually underneath there as well. Those are open and closed to do what?
It can generate so much downforce, it would or could overpower its tyres basically by generating.
Okay. So they're like a release valve?
So they're release valves basically. With downforce comes drag, and so to get the top speed, you can just bleed that off. You come to a corner, they close, you get the grip back.
And that brings us on to this wing, because it can pop up and then go flat, can't it? Depending on whether
it's like DRS in F1.
Right. And that's basically, in a very short space of time, all the aero explained. So that's Adrian Newey's job done. Dead easy. Now let's talk about the difficult bit, making a car look beautiful, which you have done here.
Yeah, and it was how do you get the beautiful, elegant forms that you know from an Aston Martin. So obviously these haunches are very, very important on the car. The four haunches, almost like cat-like.
Are there any things that were really tricky to do on this car?
Everything was difficult. So, you can take the stoplight on the back of the car here.
That little thing there?
That little thing there.
It's just like a little bit of plastic.
Yeah, so a normal one's like this and like this, and the package of it is
And you need that?
You must have that.
For a road car.
Must have that. You must have a high-mounted stop lamp on a road car. So that is about 6.5 millimeters across. We could have made it 1.5 millimeters smaller, but you can't get the EU homologation stamp. But it is the world's smallest stoplight. And the same here. That tiny blip there.
What is that?
Is to illuminate the rear number plate. And again, there's a legal requirement. You must illuminate the number plate this many lumens of light. And that
the smallest you could do it.
Smallest and of course lightest. Wing mirrors were very tricky. Basically to sit the occupant really down into the car and get these wheels where you wanted them. You couldn't actually place a wing mirror in a legal position to see behind you correctly.
So you couldn't put it here?
No, you couldn't here because basically your forward vision would have been illegal. The only solution in the end was cameras. So we've got these cool little pods here in the side of the car, and you've got two screens inside to show you what's going on. Another great one is the windscreen wiper and the windscreen itself.
So this big single windscreen wiper with the carbon fibre arm?
Yeah, Adrian wanted a teardrop cabin because of course very, very good for aero. So this is actually operates on two axes and actually rotates around the screen with the blade always sort of saying perpendicular.
So it rocks like that?
It rocks like that, and it's basically designed by people who did the one for the space shuttle.
So you couldn't just go into Halfords and go, well, I have that one.
No.
You have to call it the people who built the space shuttle.
And it took us about a year to actually solve that problem of how to meet that legal requirement. And of course, the final one was the badge. Our badge is a 6 millimeters.
It sticks quite proud, isn't it? Really nice.
All 6 millimeters. But of course, it sheds tiny vortexes off the edge of it. And because the front is actually acting as a wing, it's exactly what you don't want. We're quite particular sometimes. We hold a standard and you have to have a metal badge on the front of an Aston Martin.
So you won't just paint it on like Mercedes did on their AMG
No paint, no stickers, we won't allow it. The badge is made out of stainless steel. It's 40 microns thick.
Is that less than a hair?
When you hold it in the hand, it's like you can't feel it. It's like less than a feather in your hand. It was a 99.3% weight save, and it's so thin it actually goes under the lacquer of the paint. So they're kept in the fridge before they go on the car because they're so fragile, and with the glue, they're kept in a fridge, and when you're ready to actually paint the car, they're brought out, placed on the car, and then the car's lacquered.
This attention to detail really just sums up this car.
Yeah.
Also sums up how kind of like anal you guys must be at Aston Martin, that all our cars have metal badges, and they will do regardless of it's just a DBX or a Formula 1 car for the road. Love it.
Absolutely.
But hypercars can't just look wild on the outside. You have to have a bonkers cabin to match. In fact, sometimes these interiors can be so crazy that the government might want to get involved. I'll let James Manners from Aston Martin explain why.
At one point we were using so much titanium that we actually put the price of titanium up globally. The MOD also called us because they said, well, last time someone was buying this much titanium was when they were making the SR-17 bomber.
So they thought you might have been making a stealth bomber?
Yeah, exactly.
This interior, I mean, it's pretty stealthy, all this black, all the carbon fibre. These seats, I mean, they're barely seats.
Exactly. The seats weigh all of 8 kilograms. An S-Class seat could easily be 90 kilos.
What?
But the even more mad thing is when you compare it to the front wheels. So the front wheels, magnesium alloy, 8.5 kilos. So the seats weigh less than the wheels, which weigh less than tyres.
So the chassis is obviously carbon fibre monocoque, and you see parts of it exposed here, and this is all structural, yeah?
It's all structural through this centre console, squeezed into that tiny space. Hydraulic lines, you've got high voltage lines, you've got your main cabin harness, you've got your AC lines and your brake lines.
And you've got USB, where's the cup holders?
Well,
you have staff to hold your
exactly.
To hold your cup.
They're in the cabin.
You don't want them when you're hooting around a track, let's be honest.
No, exactly.
And the steering wheel, obviously removable. And
yeah, removable to help
the
you get in and
magnetic
out.
thing on them. Oh, I love that.
It's a lovely clunk, isn't it?
That's a nice click.
It's lovely. All of the controls are on the steering wheel itself, so you've got everything from your indicators, your gear paddles, your ERS boost button, you change your ESP and your handling modes. Launch control, wiper controls, headlight controls are all done through there. And then first touchscreen for an Aston Martin, so all of your cabin control is done through the infotainment in the middle. Your main headlight switch is done in the middle as well as you do have internet radio and sat-nav.
Do you have air conditioning?
We do have air conditioning.
So you don't exactly get many creature comforts in the Valkyrie, but that's par for the course for many hypercars. Just check out the cabin in the Hennessy Venom F5.
The inside of the Venom F5 is also a really nice piece of design. It's quite simplistic, but also very, very cool. Feels expensive with the leather, the carbon, real nice simple layout, the vertically stacked air vents there. This is the controller for the climate. Look, it's dead simple. And you've got your window switches, your nose lift, all that kind of stuff. A lot of the functions are actually on the steering wheel, which is a yoke. Just like a racing car, not like a Tesla before you start saying that. Behind the carbon fibre wheel, there's some lovely metal gear selector pedals, and have a listen to them. They sound expensive. You've got a digital driver's display there with lots of information, then a main infotainment screen here, which is a bit aftermarket because it's made by Alpine, but it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. One thing I've noticed, that while these seats are comfortable, they seem to be raised up a little bit too high. While headroom is still okay, the view out means that part of my vision is obscured by this. Apparently, Hennessy are going to be doing seats that are about 2 inches low, and then you'll really be sat down and cocooned in this car, which will be much better. In fact, they told me that they've sold one of these to an NBA basketball player, and his 6'7" or something, and he can fit in the car with the new seats, and he still has plenty of headroom. One of the things I really like though is when you're sat in this car, the view of the wings, it kind of makes it feel like the Batmobile. It's really nice. What's not so good, those storage, it's not great in here. There is one cup holder, if you can call it that. It's there. You do have a slot for your mobile phone, though mine won't fit in like that. I have to obviously do it like that. Still, sort of works. There's some very narrow door bins. And then there's this glove box or shoe, but I don't know what you call that, but there's some storage there. Have a look at this. The sill on this car is actually quite narrow, which makes it easier when you're getting in and out. Sometimes on hypercars it's really fat, which can be a pain. Now you might have noticed a lack of rear view mirror, but on customer cars there will actually be a screen there which will have a live camera feed from the rear so you can see what's behind you. Now Hennessy is really keen to point out that this car is American, and they are based in Houston, Texas. You have the American flag here on this door handle, then the Texan one over there, and there's also the Texan flag here on this seat.
You don't get any German flags in an AMG 1's cabin though. It's all strictly business. Well, if your business is being a Formula 1 driver.
Here on the inside, the AMG one feels so sporty. So you've got a Formula One style steering wheel with various buttons on it, things for like your DRS, your suspension and stuff like that, and then your dial for your different driving modes. There's also a little function here for a flashlight. So in a 24 hours race, you can like flash people to get out your way. Then you've got a big digital driver's display here with bespoke gauges and stuff like that. And then you have the normal Mercedes infotainment system. So you don't move your seat in this car because they want to keep the driver in the optimal position for balance. Instead, you move the pedal box by releasing that and then pushing it exactly where you want it, or the column is electrically operated. The seats themselves really lovely. You've got Alcantara and like leather air, and really grips you very well, which is important in a car with this kind of performance. Carbon fibre absolutely everywhere. And another thing I like, look, you've got a rear view camera because there's just, you can't see out of there. And if you want to get out, there's a big open lever there. So you pull that, then you just push the door up and then exit in style.
If you thought that looked pretty special inside, check out the Zenvo's cabin.
Here on the inside, the TSR-S is made mainly out of carbon fibre, coupled with a bit of Alcantara, and this squidgy material you might find on running shoes. Seats, oh my gosh, these seats, carbon fibre bucket seats are absolutely glorious. You have 5-point harnesses if you're on track, but thankfully there's also, look, normal seat belts, handy if you're on the road. Now, wherever you look, you will not find any switches that would be in any other car. You know, it's all bespoke for this. Zenvo has made it all in-house themselves, such as the air vents, the air conditioning system, the gear selector, the window switches, the indicator stalks, the carbon fibre paddles, the steering wheel. Absolutely nuts. Driving position is great. I love it. What's not so great though is real visibility. It's like being in a van. Thankfully, you do have a rear view mirror that uses a camera feed from the back, so you can see behind you. Oh, I want to show you this, look. Come on, look at the key. I like the key. I also like the digital driver's display. Once again, all the graphics on there are their own. The only thing that isn't their own is this. You might recognise that. That's an iPad Pro, and it runs their own infotainment system there, so you can play your Spotify and stuff like that through the car stereo. Clever. I don't know why more manufacturers don't just do that. It's like simple, really.
But there's one brand which takes bespoke interiors to another level, and they'd never dream of bolting an iPad to the dashboard. Yes, I'm talking about Bugatti.
Welcome to the inside of the Bugatti Chiron Supersport. Now, the only changes over the standard car really are Chiron Supersport written there into the headrest and here on the knee pads as well. Other than that, it's just like a normal Chiron, if there is such a thing as a normal Chiron. And this is a really bespoke car, and it's so exquisite here on the inside. I like the actual trim on this one. So we've got leather here on the steering wheel, but then it's carbon fibre, and all the metal bits just feel super expensive. You've got your engine start button there, your launch control button there. I will be launching the car later on in the video, you betcha. Also, you've got the driving mode switch there. In front of you, you've got a big speedo, which goes all the way to 500 kilometers an hour. And there's a digital rev count on the left, and then an infotainment screen on the right, which has your sat nav and various other bits and pieces as well. One thing to note is this though, look. Manually operated steering column in a €3 million car. Not so sure about that. What I am sure about though is the seating position. It's absolutely brilliant, and the seats are glorious, and of course they're electrically operated. Also, what's glorious is this bit here. See this sort of C? It matches the C shape on the air intakes on the side. In fact, everything about this car is exquisite. It's just wonderful. I like these little switches here. They're for your climate control, but if you press a button, you can get some information on them, such as the maximum horsepower you've had out the engine. So this one has gone all the way up to 1,615 horsepower, and look, it's revved to be on 7,000 RPM. It's also showing the maximum speed this car has done. It's only saying 113 miles an hour, but I'm going to go on the Autobahn, and I reckon I'm going to easily beat that, and we'll find out exactly how fast I go a bit later on in this video.
But before we get to the performance of these cars, we need to talk about engines. And let's start with the honest-to-goodness V8 in the Hennessy Venom F5, although this is no ordinary V8.
It's Hennessy's own 6.6 litre twin-turbo V8. In fact, it's so mental, they've named it Fury. It's got huge turbos, they're the size of a dinner plate, just in there, 2 of them. You've also got this massive air intake, it's water-cooled. You've got 2 injectors per cylinder and 3 fuel pumps, but you need it because this thing drinks fuel. When you're doing full bore runs, you probably get about 12 to a tank, and a tank's got 90 litres. It's absolutely nuts, but you do burn a lot of fuel when you're producing a lot of power. And this delivers 1,817 horsepower and 1,617 newton meters of torque. It's completely bonkers, and it drives the rear wheels only via a 7-speed robotised manual gearbox. 0 to 60, 2.6 seconds. Top speed, well, so far, Hennessy has taken it to 272 miles an hour, but it will go quicker. And I'm going to feel just how quick it is when I do a full-bore second gear roll-on later in the video.
But turbochargers aren't the only way to get insane power out of a V8. Just take a look at the engine in the Zenvo TSR-S, for example.
So it's a 5.8 litre twin supercharged V8 that puts out 1,200 horsepower and 1,200 newton meters of torque.
But a V8 just isn't going to be enough for some people. In fact, there are plenty of billionaires out there who demand nothing less than 16 cylinders. And in that case, there's only one car that's up to the job, the Bugatti Chiron Supersport.
What I've got here is an 8 litre quad turbo W16. It's absolutely massive, and it puts out 1,600 horsepower depending on which version of the car you have. You can probably see this bit here. This is the gearbox off the front, and it actually sends the power to the front axle where you've got a limited slip differential. It's a 7-speed dual clutch gearbox. It's also got obviously the power going from here to the rear, and once again you've got another electronically controlled limited slip differential there. Now I want to show you this. Look, see this valve here? So that is for the turbos. So when you're at lower RPM, you only actually have one turbo on each bank operating, and that's to reduce turbo lag. And that's why you get maximum torque of 1,600 newton meters from just 2,000 RPM. But when you rev the engine past 4,000 RPM, this valve opens and all 4 turbos start blowing. And at 6,700 RPM, this thing is sucking in 1,000 litres of air a second in order for combustion to take place. It's absolutely nuts.
But there is a car out there with an engine that's even more complicated. I am, of course, talking about the AMG 1.
Just like Mercedes-AMG's Formula One car, the AMG 1 is powered by a 1.6 litre V6 turbo petrol engine with hybrid technology. So the engine's mounted here. You can see part of it's just underneath this carbon fibre airbox. The turbocharger design is very clever. So you have the turbine and the compressor actually separated out at either ends of the engine, and they're connected by a drive shaft. They're also mated to a 122 horsepower electric motor, which allows you to spin up the turbocharger to 100,000 revolutions per minute, so that you have no turbo lag, and then when you've got enough exhaust gases, that takes over providing the boost. Apparently the throttle response of this engine is actually better than a Mercedes naturally aspirated V8. Incredible. Also, you've got another electric motor mounted to the crankshaft to provide some assistance to the engine, 163 horsepower. Now this engine technology is really quite clever. In a normal production car, you have a thermal efficiency of about 35%. In this, it's 40%, though in a Formula One car, it's actually 50%. And thermal efficiency basically shows how good the engine is at converting fuel into energy and not wasting it as heat.
But there's a problem. Modern Formula One doesn't exactly sound great. So what do you do if you want the F1 experience, but you want the F1 experience of old? So a screaming V12 soundtrack. Cue the Aston Martin Valkyrie.
Now let's talk about the engine and the chassis. Tell me about this V12.
We've got a 6.5 litre V12 quad cam 48 valve naturally aspirated engine. Overall we've got 1155 PS, 1001 horsepower from the engine on its own, because we wanted to say we've got more than 1,000 horsepower. The engine itself generates 780 newton meters at 7,000 RPM.
What does it rev to?
It revs all the way to 11,100 RPM. So peak power is at 10,600 RPM. So it's a P2 hybrid. So that means you've got engine with a twin plate clutch straight off of Formula One technology. And that goes to your E-motor, which is on your input shaft to the gearbox. We also do ERS boost. We do torque infill, because again we just want that throttle response that smooths out the curves from the ICE delivered torque. We also do first gear pull away, so because we've got that plate clutch to take all the horsepower and the torque of the engine, you've seen in other hypercars they can be quite lurchy at low speed.
Yeah, whereas this just smooth, isn't it?
Exactly.
I don't know what noise that was. I did it again though. I think I need to get my teeth fixed. Whistle between them. Anyway, so you're driving away in electric power alone from the motor, which has how much horsepower and how much torque?
So 280 newton meters of torque,
Yep.
160 horsepower.
So when you're first driving this car, your £2.5 million Aston Martin Valkyrie, you've got 160 horsepower.
That's it, yeah.
But not for very long.
No, not for very long. Well, with the 280 newton meters, we spec the e-motor to be that size because any bigger and you just spin the wheels with the e-motor alone.
How much torque in total?
924 newton meters at 7,000 RPM.
I love the carbon fibre on there, but this is the air intake, isn't it?
It is indeed. So
What's something special about this?
We've got over 400 3D printed components in this car. First for Aston Martin to use a 3D printed part on its own, let alone multiple hundreds of times, and including sort of customer facing bits. Some of the vents on the inside are 3D printed.
So this element here
this
is
element
3D
here
printed.
is 3D printed. And
What is this though? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right.
This is weird. It's like
exactly. So that
Elastic-y.
it's a hydrophobic film because you've got the air scoop on the roof when you're driving in the rain. We don't
Water
want
comes
the
in
air
here.
ingesting the water. So the hydrophobic film stops the water coming through, which then runs down here and then runs down that drain tube in the middle. Even with that film, it can still ingest enough air to power a 6.5 litre V12 at 11,100 RPM.
That's incredible. So what is the top speed of this car?
So it's electronically limited to 355 kph,
Which is in old money.
220 miles an hour.
And how about the convertible, the Spider?
Exactly the same.
Even with the roof off?
Even with the roof off, exactly.
Oh
the
wow,
same.
okay.
So we're not power limited, so even with the roof off, we are still
So it could
limited
go
at 200.
faster.
It could.
All right, I get it, okay. How many coupes will be built?
150,
And how many Spiders?
85,
And they're all gone.
and they're all
Just asking for a friend, obviously.
exactly.
Obviously, you've got all this power. You're going to need some good brakes. So let's move on to the brakes.
So carbon ceramic brakes, CCM brakes. We didn't go full carbon because it's a road car. We still wanted you to be able to stop at a set of traffic lights. So we wanted that low speed braking capability. You've got 420mm discs at the front with a 6-pot caliper. At the rear, we've got 385mm discs with 6-pot calipers.
And the tyres, these just look like, when I say normal, they're huge. They're Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s.
Exactly, so you've got 20 inches on the front, 21 inches on the back, but again, we wanted an off-the-shelf tyre because ultimately this is a
You're
road
going to
car.
get through some tyres, because I know if you have a Bugatti Chiron, they have bespoke tyres, and if you get a puncture or you need to replace the tyres, it's very expensive and can be a bit of a pain.
Speaking of the Bugatti Chiron, how does that car's chassis, brakes and suspension compare with the Aston Martin? Well,
You have the same carbon ceramic brakes as on the standard Chiron. So you've got 420mm discs up front, 400 at the back. You've got 8 piston calipers and 4 pads at the front, and 6 piston calipers with 2 pads at the back. Should give some pretty good stopping power. But let's find out by doing a brake test. I'm going to do a full emergency stops from 60 miles an hour. See how long it takes this car to stop. So let's see. Braking now. Oh, full stompage. Right. So stopped in 33 metres. When you're braking from higher speeds, then you also get some help from the air brake. So it'll deploy from 180 kilometres an hour. And when you are braking, the combined effect of the normal friction brakes and the air brake from a speed of 380 kilometres an hour, you get 2 Gs of deceleration. Now let's talk about the car's chassis. So it has a carbon fibre tub, which is so stiff. Its torsional rigidity is 50,000 Newton meters per degree. What that means is that you can bolt the back of the chassis onto the wall, get a metal bar, a very strong one, attach it to the front, so it's meter long, the metal bar, and you could put down 50 tons worth of pressure on that bar, and the chassis would only twist by 1 degree. It's insane. As with the normal Chiron, the Super Sport has double wishbone suspension all round. However, they have tweaked the suspension ever so slightly. So while you have similar springs, the dampers have been retuned to cope with the car's slightly higher top speed.
We'll get on to top speed soon, but the Chiron isn't the only car here with some clever aero bits to help you brake as quickly as possible. The Zenvo has one of the weirdest rear wings I've ever seen on a car.
This massive rear wing is mounted to these 2 hydraulic rams, and it can act as an air brake like you get with other hypercars. So you stamp on the brake, and it'll do that to slow you down. But also, when you're turning, it acts like an aerofoil. So if you turn to the right, it'll actually bend the wing the opposite direction to push down the side of the car, which would normally be leaning up. And then if you do it the other way, if you turn to the left, it'll do it to the opposite side. And then you can make it dance around all over the place to like show off to your friends. It's kind of like some flight simulator, isn't it? It's nuts. So this car has double wishbone suspension all round and KW coilovers, which you can adjust 4 different ways. There's also adjustable anti-roll bars at the front and the back, and you can adjust each wheel individually for tow, caster and camber. You've also got an electronically controlled hydraulic rear differential to send the power to the rear wheel with the most grip for better corner exiting traction.
Compared with all this, the Hennessy Venom F5 almost seems ordinary, but it's still packing loads of high-performance technology under its carbon fibre skin.
The Venom F5 has been built from the ground up by Hennessy. It uses their own carbon fibre monocoque, and it only weighs 86 kilos. That's the monocoque, not the whole car. All the body panels are carbon fibre as well. It has double wishbone suspension at the front and the rear, and it's got adjustable coilovers, though you don't adjust them by pressing a button in the cabin. You actually have to do it manually on the shock absorber itself. The car also gets a limited slip rear differential. If you have some serious power, you need some serious brakes, and this car has some. So you've got Brembo carbon ceramics front and back, 390mm disc front and back, and 6 piston calipers at the front, 4 pistons at the rear. Apparently this car will pull 1.4 Gs under braking.
But the car with the strangest engine and chassis technology here is the AMG 1.
The engine is mounted to an 8-speed automatic gearbox, and it's a sequential gearbox, and it drives the rear wheels. The engine is actually bolted onto the carbon fibre monocoque, and it's a fully stressed member. It provides structural support, just like in a Formula 1 car. Then like the suspension and everything is hung off the gearbox. Once again, that's a fully stressed member. So they're using that to provide stiffness to the car, so that they're actually trying to minimise the weight of the thing. Wow, it all looks pretty impressive in there. Look at the suspension coilovers there. So nice, and we have gold here. Might take a little bit of that and sell it. Unlike a Mercedes-AMG Formula 1 car, the One is a plug-in hybrid, so you can just plug it into a normal wall box and just charge it. You've got an 8 kilowatt hour battery, and that'll give you a range of around 18 kilometers on electric power alone. When it's running in electric power, it is only front wheel drive though. However, it can go at speeds of over 200 kilometers an hour. Probably not for 18 kilometers though. The total system output of the entire car is 1,063 horsepower, and Mercedes-AMG says this car will do 0 to 100 kilometers in 2.9 seconds and 0 to 200 kilometers in 7 seconds.
But what does that level of performance actually feel like? Well, let's find out.
Okay, here we go then. Driving the new AMG 1. A little bit nervous, never driven this track before, and obviously never driven this car before, but let's start it up. The start button's just like in other AMGs. There we go, so I'll pull up on the right shift paddle to go into D. There, that's it. Here we go. Silence. I'm just being driven by the 2 electric motors, which are on the front axle, 1 on each wheel, 163 horsepower each. Oh, there goes the V6! Sounds like someone's got a pneumatic drill behind me. Whoa. Woo-hoo-hoo. So I'm following Bernd Schneider, a DTM champion in a AMG GT Black Series. I'm really trying to cut. Whoa! That's the first time I accelerated it! The brake pedal feels very road car-like rather than race car. I suppose it is a road car that's also a race car. Oh, the engine feels absolutely gorgeous. It's so responsive. And it feels quite soft in the mode that I'm driving. It's street mode I'm on at the moment. Throttle response is amazing. Whoa, locked up there. My tyres are cold. Whoa, this is some circuit, you know. Oh. The pickup is so smooth. So I'm trying to listen to Bird on the radio, follow the track, feel the car. It's a little bit of a sensory overload, but it feels quite stable and easy. Well, I'll cock that up, Just hold on, let it roll round. The throttle response is nuts. It's that crazy split turbo design with the electric motor on it. It just picks up so instant. It feels lovely. The power system, it's got a fruity, energetic feel to it. Really, really nice. It's not blown me away in terms of the performance, but then I've like driven a Rimac Navara, which is just nuts, but it's got such a nice feel to it. It's like bubbling with energy. not so impressed by the shifts of the gearbox. It's a single clutch sequential. There wasn't enough room because the gearbox hangs off the back of the engine to fit a dual clutcher, so you do feel the gear change, especially in the mode I'm in at the moment. Although, do you know what? It kind of adds the experience, the race car feel. Whoa! The way this thing picks up half a turn is wicked. Okay, so I've done a couple of laps in hybrid street mode and it felt pretty sporty and quite soft, like the suspension seems supple like when you're riding over the curbs. Now though, we're going to turn it up a notch and go into what they call Strat 2, which is like qualifying mode, so it's just all out basically. Turn that to the right, pull on the pedal, hold it, here we go. Whoa. Okay, so now doing that has unlocked that Strat 2 setting. Okay, Burn, let's do this. So this is in full-on crazy race mode. Now I'm running in automatic for the gearbox. I can go into manual. It won't let you control the gearbox if you're in automatic using the pedals. They just don't work. Look, they're not doing anything. So I have to choose it on here. But I'm going to stay in auto for now, like I'm playing Gran Turismo. Okay, so we're going to be going a little bit faster. I may go a bit quiet on you now while I try and concentrate. That's what I say to my girlfriend. You can tell I'm a dad now because I laugh at my own jokes. Bloody hell. That caught me out. It's really interesting how it chases down that Black Series. Whoa! So we've got torque vectoring on the front of the axle, really helping me turn the car into the corners. This bit worries me so much. Look how he's just lost me at that stage. I haven't got the balls to go through there at that speed in this car that isn't mine, that's worth over £2 million. The braking is intense though, the way I catch him up on the braking. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm on the straight now, I'm going to use the DRS button, here we go. Whoa, come on, DRS! Need to change gear, cocked it up a bit, here we go. No, I'm just backing off now. I almost didn't know where I was there and went off the track. But the brakes are so good, it's really stable that it saved my skin. Even though I completely cocked that up like this, I've cocked that up, understeered, ran wide. And I'm all over the place now. I'm getting quite high in here, I wish I knew where the air conditioning was. Hey Mercedes, turn on air conditioning. Mercedes!
Computer says no.
It normally pipes up when you say Mercedes. Okay, so we're going to do a cool down lap, and I need to cool down because I'm sweating already. We need to keep the revs up to about 6,000 to help charge the battery, so I've got maximum power for the next laps. You notice the difference when it's in that Strat 2 mode, just feels a little bit sharper. I'm still finding the brake pedal a little bit hard right now. Can't fault the performance of the brakes. Obviously being a hybrid, you've got regenerative braking happening, and it always just muddies the feel of the brake pedal ever so slightly, and it does a bit here. Not terrible, but I do notice it doesn't feel completely pure. But the way the car responds to the steering and the way it communicates what's going on beneath you through your bottom of the seat, it's really, really confidence inspiring. I'm so conscious of the value of this car, the rarity. Mercedes AMG will keep 2 prototypes for themselves. The other 275 that will be built are all going to customers. You know, there's quite a responsibility test driving a car like this. I'm trying to tell you what it feels like, experience it for myself properly, and not crash the bloody thing. Okay, I've now moved into the passenger seat and we've got Bernd driving. So I'm not following you this time. I'm going to see what it's like when a proper racing driver is getting the most out of this car. Now I've figured out how to use the air conditioning, and I've got it set to, we need to turn the ignition on. I've got it set to 19. Do you want to go a bit lower? 17?
Yeah, 17 is fine.
So I prefer 17 as well, so that's all good. I'm glad we agree on that. So should we do it? Should we go into racing mode?
Okay.
Here we go. So what I'm going to try and do is give you some more information on this car while he hoops it around the track. I can do my best. We'll see how we go. And hopefully I won't be sick everywhere.
So, ready?
Yeah, are you going manual for the gearbox or automatic? What are you going to do?
Manual.
Manual, okay.
Sport handling mode.
Not all off? What's the matter with you? Come on.
You know I am old now.
Yeah, all right, I'm old as well. Let's do it. Oh, yeah. Okay, so, what am I going to tell you? Right. Interior quality of this car is really, really good. It's, you know, it's a Mercedes, right? That's one of the good things about it. It feels just normal car-like. There is enough room with a helmet on for someone my size. However, are you all right? What happened?
I think we got too much fuel, battery, and then sometimes the engine stopped.
What?
Because you know, it's just for emergency that the batteries are not overloaded, and when they're too much full, the engine switch off.
So you're going too quick. So actually, my lap time will be quicker than yours now.
You have to go quicker.
Whoa! Oh, this is a lot quicker. Oh, it's so good to feel what it can actually do. Oh. Yeah, so enough headroom for me, but taller people might find it a bit hard. What's also interesting is the fact that, well, you can move the pedals and the steering wheel for the driver. You can't move the seat at all for the passenger because the seats don't move. And it is a little bit, you know, if you've got long legs, you're going to be a bit like that in it. Whoa. Oh, this engine, 1.6 V6 is just so good. I keep going on about it. I thought it'd be boring, but this is why you buy this car. It's got a Formula 1 engine, a 2015 Formula 1 power system.
But that's not the only car that comes with loads of F1 know-how. So does the Aston Martin Valkyrie. And in many ways, that car is even crazier to drive than the AMG 1.
I've been waiting for this moment for a long time, but finally, I'm sat in the driver's seat of the Aston Martin Valkyrie, and I'm going to start its naturally aspirated 6.5 litre V12. Let's do it. Oh my God. Let's go for a drive. What is it? Racing harnesses. It's got soft close. I'm going to do some laps, first of all, following behind the Formula 1 safety car driven by Darren Turner, who's Aston Martin's development driver. He's also won GT3 class at Le Mans 3 times. Oh my God, this is something else. It's loud in here and tight. Look, my head's hitting there. No customers have seats built for them, so they shouldn't have this problem. I'm basically sat on the floor. It's got a single clutch robotised manual gearbox with 7 speeds, and it's pretty jolting. Bit like a Lamborghini Aventador. Wow, it's so responsive. And that engine just wants to rev up. Oh, it turns it so quick. I've almost forgotten the track. This is such a mad sensory experience. Whoa! Oh, the vibrations coming through my bottom are strangely pleasing. This engine just wants to rev. This is so beautiful. I've driven the Mercedes AMG 1. This feels more like a racing car. Oh. And it feels light and nimble and agile. It weighs under 1.3 tons, and you can feel that when you're chucking it around. But what's really amazing is the downforce. At 100 miles an hour, you've got half a ton. Maximum downforce is like 1.1 tons. That's at 160 miles an hour, and it just stays. Can't really let it out with it in front of me. So this is a perfect example of how the machine can make you better than the man. I could drive this fast around here. Darren can drive that safety car, and believe me, Darren is infinitely better at driving than me. But that just goes to show you how capable this car is. Oh, press the DRS button then, and you feel the extra punch from the motor. Straighten up a bit, let's go for it. Oh, yay! But DRS happening as well. This is insane. Oh! torque limited. Let's go into the pits, find out what's happened. Oh, no, it's just got into neutral, it's lost its mind. I'm coasting in neutral. So the Aston Martin team are checking the car, they've got their laptop hooked up to it. They're probably going to find out that it's stopped because I was driving it too quickly, and it would have embarrassed Darren when he gets to drive it, you see. So it knew that it shouldn't go as quick as it did when I was driving, so it just went, nah, to the end, Matt, you're just getting too fast now. So I've now jumped into the passenger seat and Darren Turner is next to me. So Darren, have we fixed the car?
Yeah, basically, you got a little bit carried away with the ERS button.
Yeah, it's wicked.
So it's good, but it's once a lap. It's like a DRS. So down the main straight, push the button, and I've looked at your data, and you were like a PlayStation, pushing that button like 5 or 6 times a lap.
Yeah.
So all it does is it depletes the battery, and then it came to a stop. So effectively, when we go round now, I'll be doing it once on the main straight, get that power boost, and then using the normal engine, 1,000 horsepower. That's more than enough for the lap.
Listen, no one told me that you can only press it once, and if I've got a button that can make it go quicker, I'm going to press it as many times as I possibly can.
Yeah, that was our bad. We should have given you the heads up on the ERS button.
Okay, so driver error. Sorry about that. I'm glad I didn't break it because I can't afford to buy one. Oh, it's lit up. Yay, I didn't break it. Let's see how you're supposed to drive this thing. I'll tell you what's amazing that I didn't pick up on first is just how well it rides over bumps because it's got that active suspension. I'm coming into the start finish straight, just to go through them. Right. That's what's letting it out. It's DRS. It's 23 kilometers an hour. Yeah, it's got the pole rotating and moving around. Let's see if this corner. Yes, look at the power there. Whoa. The way this stops and turns while stopping is so impressive. Final corner. Round the back straight. That was wicked.
But the Valkyrie is only the tip of the iceberg, because Aston Martin has also built a track-only AMR Pro Edition, and that really is one of the most bonkers cars I've ever been in.
All right, Darren, so we've jumped into the AMR Pro now, haven't we?
Yes, so it's a completely different driving experience now. We're on slick tyres, still got 1,000 horsepower, but fixed aero and no active suspension, so it's a different ride altogether. You ready to do a couple of laps?
Before we do, though, has it got a different chassis to the normal Valkyrie?
Yeah, so the carryover from the road-going Valkyrie is effectively the engine and the headlights.
And you don't have the electric motor then?
There's an electric motor in a different way. We pull away on an e-motor, and then as we go down the pit lane, we'll bump start the engine, and then we'll go on just the engine from that moment onwards. So effectively, the electric motor on this car is only for low-speed manoeuvrability.
So there's no ERS button for me to press a lot?
There's definitely no button.
I'll be faster in this.
I
wouldn't break it.
It'd be fine. Yeah, there's no battery to discharge really quickly.
Okay, let's do it. Let's see if I can hold on to all this kit. You might
Barney,
not get any audio. Right. We'll find out.
Just get it straight. Bump start. There we go.
I thought the normal Valkyrie was loud, but this thing is just deafening. Oh yeah, cold tires. Very limited numbers. This is how many. It will show on the screen now. Quickly. This is not very pleasant. Oh, the vibrations in the seat are making me want to do a poo. I need to go to the toilet really urgently, like really quickly. Let's get me out of this. That one right-hander, the fast one,
Yeah.
I can feel my lungs stretching. Let's get to the toilet as quick as we can. It's
Fast
an
as that.
emergency.
I'll hold it.
I hope I can get this race suit down quick enough.
There you go, bud.
Will I make it in time? Added jeopardy. Maybe it was the chicken last night. Bye-bye.
But the AMR Pro is more of a racing car. It has slick tyres and a bespoke chassis, and you can't drive it on the road. And that brings you on to what it's actually like to drive a hypercar on real roads while surrounded by actual normal traffic. Well, I found out when I tested the Zenvo TSR-S in the UK on a damp day.
I'm going to actually start off testing it in town, see what it's like as a daily driver, because it's quite an extreme looking car. So would it be extreme to live with? Okay, so it's fairly firm, the suspension, but because it's expensive suspension, it's not jarring. So it does just round the edges off of the bumps, but you do feel all the bumps. But it's not massively uncomfortable. The seats are actually really nice. The steering is light and easy. It's a wide car though, and being a left-hand drive, I'm having to be careful not to be too far over the white line. So I've got to get a bit more into the gutter when there's a lorry coming like that. Now if you need to make a manoeuvre, let's see what it's like. Can I do a U-turn in it? Has it got a decent turning circle? Okay, come on, can we make it round? Not sure I'm going to make it round, and visibility is a little bit tricky, but come on. Don't curb these wheels, they are very expensive. I can't do that. Ah, there's a truck! Don't, you daft woman! Oh no! Now I've got to get into reverse, you've got to wait for it to engage reverse. Come on, oh, there we go. Much panicking, there we are. So turning circle is quite a lot. Oh, the gearbox, there we go. Got to wait for it to engage. It's a problem with the dog gearbox. Great when you're on track and you want instant changes, but when you're manoeuvring, it's a bit more of a faff. You have to be a bit patient. The view at the front of this car is actually all right because you've got quite a low bonnet and quite a low dash, so you get a good view forward. The rear view mirrors are pretty decent as well. It's just when you're looking at junctions like that, you can't see past that part, so it's that part behind me. You could daily drive it, you probably won't, but you can easily drive it to a track day, no problem at all. Anyway, enough of this nonsense. Let's go on a twisty road, see what it's like. Oh, the steering is responsive. Yes, it's got hydraulic power steering. Good old hydraulic power steering. So you do feel connected to the front wheels. Interesting thing about this engine is that because it's supercharged and not turbocharged, you don't have a sudden wallop of power, it just builds. So it's actually easy to just drive sedately if you want to, such as when you get caught behind a blooming Hyundai i10. Yay! I'm in my £1 million hypercar, and this is the reality of driving in the UK. They're actually going well below the speed limit. Be patient, people. You have to be patient, I think, if you've got a hypercar. Unless you get up at the crack of dawn when there's no other traffic about, you're always going to end up in this situation. Come on, that's it. Don't worry, your car won't fall over. It looks like it might, but it won't. Oh, that must have scared the out of her. It's like a gun going off when you change gears. Whoa! 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 This power delivery is so linear. You don't get a wallop in your back like you do with a turbo. It just builds and then whoo, you've got to stay brave. Whoa! It's snaking all over the place. Whoa! Do you know what? It sort of reminds me of a Lotus Exige, but times 10. It's just like nuts. The way you sit in it as well, low, but it's got a really low nose and a low dash, so you get a great view forward. When you're actually on it and changing gears, the gearbox, it's quick. It's just when you're manoeuvring. Can it be sedate on the motorway? I don't know. There we go. Let's get into 7th gear, top gear. It's not too bad. I mean, I'm having to talk up a bit so you can hear me, because obviously there's not much in the way of soundproofing in this car. But for just tooting on the motorway, it's actually quite nice. Do you know what's really nice? The brakes are lovely. You can really just judge the amount of stopping power. If you buy this car, you can actually spec it with Pilot Sport 4S's, and I think I would probably go for those tyres unless you're just track daying it every time, because they'll just make it more usable every day. Now I'm going to launch this Zenvo. It's supposed to do 0-16 2.9 seconds. I'm not sure I'm going to manage that because I'm on cold Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2R tyres and it's a greasy road. I hope I don't bin it, I'm a bit nervous. Let's try anyway. I'm not going to use launch control because that's just going to spin up the tyres. I'm going to try and modulate the power as best as I can. If I can do it in under 4.5 seconds, I'll be surprised. Here we go. I'm going to just feed the power in. Whoa! Oh! I mean, that... I short shifted, it was spinning up its wheels, it was a bit of a mess really, and I still did 0 to 60 in just over 4.5 seconds. I'd love to try it with warm tyres on a decent bit of road. I reckon it could do 2.9, I reckon it can, but no chance today in my hands. But I'm going to give it one more go. Oh, that's better, but still so much wheel spin. 4.3 seconds. You know, and it was just wheel spinning pretty much through that. I know what you're thinking. Oh, you can go quicker from 0 to 60 in a Mercedes AMG A45. But yeah, you can, it's 4-wheel drive and stuff like that, but you need to get the conditions for this car, and today is not the right day, not on these tyres.
So you could daily drive a Zenvo if you really wanted to, but what about something more powerful, more expensive and faster? What's it like to drive a Bugatti Chiron Supersport on the road?
It's actually really, really easy to live with as a daily. So I'm just going to go into normal drive mode and let the gearbox do its thing, and I'm just going to poodle about, and I could just be in a normal car. My mum could drive this, no problem at all. It's just so easy to drive, especially for a car that is capable of such insane speed. Yet the way it goes over bumps is just pretty much like a hatchback. That's not true, actually. It feels more sophisticated the way it deals with bumps than a hatchback because its suspension is more sophisticated. Visibility forward is extremely good because you've got a relatively low dash. It's all right at the side, and there's view out the back, although it is obscured slightly by what looks like a sperm whale's tail. Huge, huge wing. It's so easy to drive, I can't get my head around it. But then if you want it, you can just take control of things and yeah, put your foot down, and did you hear that? Wait for a second for the boost to build, but then it comes on, and it comes on strong. And then this car just takes off, and then when you lift off for a corner, you just hear the gases go, so good. And in a corner, considering it's a relatively heavy car, it's so planted, it's incredible. And of course you've got 4-wheel drive traction to just, whoa, just haul you out the bends, it's nuts. And that is so addictive, getting this thing on boost and flooring it. And then you look down at what gear you're in, and it pulls as though you're in a much lower gear than you actually are. The torque from this engine is nuts. So good. Oh, and yeah, if you want to overtake people, it's just like... I'm going to put it into auto mode again, see what it's just like when you want to calm down again and chill. Obviously being a dual clutch, it's not quite as silky smooth at changing gears as one with a torque converter, but then when you're on it and you want to change gears yourself, it's like smack, smack, smack through the gearbox. Right, I think I'm going to turn around. I'm going to be careful, because it's a very expensive car. So I think I might turn around here. Reverse is down there, get it right. Oh, got a little camera there, it's showing me what's behind me, sort of. Oh. Oh. It's not as difficult as you might imagine in something so powerful. Do you know what? Every time I drive this car, I keep forgetting that you have to knock it twice to get into drive. Otherwise, you just sit there in neutral looking like a complete and utter idiot, just revving away. Do you know what they've done in this car? It's very, very important, this, especially for a hypercar. The position of the central tunnel, the height of it, and the armrest hit, it's perfect for just driving along like this. Maybe you shouldn't drive a car this powerful, just like that. But you can do, or grip it properly, take control. Do you know what's super impressive? It's the actual feel you get through the controls. It really is just so well set up. It's totally like tuned into your brain. Like the amount of steering input is the amount of response you get from the car, what you expect to get. The brake pedal feel is so good, you can just judge the braking, so it's not at all jerky. You can make it really smooth, and then if you want to really stop hard, it will do. It's nicely set up. It makes the car actually feel a lot lighter than it really is. And you might not think that from something that's capable of these kind of speeds. You think it'd just be a one-trick pony, but it's not. It's more of a multifaceted horse. That's a weird analogy that no one's ever used before and will probably never be used again. It makes a noise like a horse, doesn't it? Sorry about that. Do you know what though? This thing is about top speed, isn't it? I need to go somewhere where I can open this thing up, so I think it's time to head to Germany and the Autobahn. Before we head on to the Autobahn, it makes sense for me to fill this thing up to the brim with petrol, because when you're maxing it out, it just drinks fuel at an alarming rate. So here we go.
Oi, no! Don't put 95 in my car. We'll only have 1200 horsepower instead of the 1600 horsepower.
Yeah, I don't want just 1200 horsepower, that wouldn't be enough. I want the full 16, so all right, I'll pay a bit extra. 98. Bloody hell. Right, Andy. Oh, good. Andy Wallace, Bugatti's test driver and Le Mans winner as well. Here we go, joining the Autobahn. Blimey. Whew. That was 200 kilometres an hour, like that. Let's open it up again, let's go. Christ, 250. Oi. This is where you're going to need your carbon ceramic brakes, because there's always someone just pulling in front of you in a Skoda not so rapide. Whoa! 300 kilometers an hour! Woo! That's 196 miles an hour, almost 200, and it's just the speed at which it gets to that. It's nuts! I want to do over 200 miles an hour. Whoa! Oh! Don't pull out! Don't trust him. It's a Renault Capture. Yeah, you can't trust those kind of Renault Captures, not the kind of speeds we're doing in this thing. Woo! The way it takes off. Wow. Here we go. It just gets to 300 kilometers an hour so effortlessly. It's nuts. Whoa! Whoa, that was a lot of speed there. 208 miles an hour. And he's just pulling. If you come out on the Autobahn late at night, there's no one around, this thing will just smash up to its 273 mile an hour top speed. I can guarantee you that. Oh, it's so good. Gets through its petrol pretty quickly when you're doing that though. You can actually see the gauge move. You know what, while I'm cruising along, I'm going to give you a bit of useful consumer advice about this car. So I have noticed that when you're just cruising along at 150 kilometers an hour, you get a slight whine from the engine, ever so slightly. It's not too bad, but you do notice it and you could find it a bit irritating maybe. However, when you're going over that speed, you don't notice it because you're too busy focusing on what's going on. So it doesn't really matter. Anyway, let's get on. Here we go! Come on! Wow, this thing just hauls ass! And it brakes so well! Get out of the way! Get out of the way, damn you! Do you know what? I've been thwarted twice now by Renault. Right, the car's getting low on fuel. I'm going to give it one last go. I've done 208 miles an hour. I want to try and get past 210. There's another opportunity. Woo! That was some serious speed there. What did I do? So I just managed to do 212 miles an hour. I wanted to get over 200, then I did 208, and I wanted to get over 210, and I did it 212 miles an hour in the Chiron Supersport. I can relax now. Oh, no, there is one last thing to do, obviously. Bugatti says the Chiron Super Sport will do 0 to 60 miles an hour in 2.4 seconds. But I don't believe them. I don't at all, so I think it's only fair that I test it for myself. So I'm going to do that with my specialist timing gear up here. So, left foot on the brake, very hard, press launch control, floor the throttle. Little boost. Off we go. Bit of tyre spin there. Bugatti, they're a right bunch of liars. Can't trust them at all. Look, it does 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds. Terrible. That was nuts! That was utterly nuts! I can't believe it does it, how it all just works together, the gearbox, the engine, everything, and then it goes and does that. The poor tyres, though, I do feel sorry for the tyres, but they did their job.
It appears then that the Bugatti Chiron Supersport really is a hypercar you could live with every day. But the Hennessy Venom F5 is gunning for the Chiron Supersport's top speed crown.
Let's do it! Oh my god, this thing's so quick. And the brakes, carbon ceramics, feel like race car brakes rather than road car brakes. You really have to push them quite hard, but then they do really work very well. The steering on this thing, it's heavy, it's meaty, it's quick, it's precise. The handling, this thing just stays flat, 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 flat with the bends. But I'm not going to go flat, 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 flat out because it's so tight, there's loads of trees and I might end up in a very expensive and nasty accident. But actually, do you know what? This thing doesn't go around corners well. And it's not crazy scary like you think it might be. But you do feel so much through your hands, through your bum. You can tell that it's not heavy as well. You know, by modern car standards and modern hypercars, something like a Chiron is way heavier than this. That means it's more responsive and darting. I mean, look at that. I'll tell you what, the best way to sum up how this car feels to drive is it's a bit like someone made a Lotus Elise very mad and then it turned into like this car Hulk. That's what the Hennessy Venom is. It's nuts. So this is the part of the video where I normally launch the car and measure its 0 to 60 in 70 mile using my specialist timing gear. However, I can't today. You see, this is a prototype. It's got to do lots of other work. I go to the good old Festival of Speed. It's also a customer car. What I can do though is a second gear roll on and we'll see how well it pulls. I will get the car back eventually and do a full launch and time it for you. But for now, watch the numbers go up on the dials and watch the grin go up on my face. Let's do this. Second gear, here we go. Shit it now. Oh my god, it's so raw! Yeah, the power just builds. When you change gear, it's a bit jolty. It's not like your dual clutch that you get in your normal supercars. It reminds me of the Lamborghini Aventador's single clutch robotised manual. Apparently though, they are working on that. They're going to improve the gearbox. If you're into cars that really make you feel something, you're going to be into this Hennessy Venom. John, you know I'm only supposed to have like one high-speed run. Please can I have another?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
Of course you can.
Okay, gotta go do it now.
No more than two.
No more than two.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I'll make this one count.
All right,
Okay then, let's go again. One last one. Oh, this is just a video of some middle-aged man going, "Ah!" when he's going quickly. That never gets dull. So interesting, like comparing that experience to the experience I've had in the Bugatti Chiron Super Sport. which is much calmer in the way it accelerates, and also comparing it to the Rimac Navara, which is like bang straight on it, then slowly tails off. This is the other way around, like builds, and it's just so raw and everything's like vibrating and your mind's just going crazy. Hell yeah! Yeah! God bless the good old United States of America.
So, how do you pick a winner from these 5 cars? Well, it all depends on what you want from your hypercar. If you're the sort of person who wants to cruise around showing off, then you'll want the rarest and most extreme looking car possible, and that could be the Zenvo TSR-S. After all, only 15 of these Danish hypercars will ever be made, and they all come with that completely bonkers rear wing that'll turn heads like nothing else. But what if you actually want to drive your car on a racetrack? Well, the AMG One is the closest thing you can get to driving an actual modern day Formula One car, because it has an actual modern day Formula One car engine and power system. It's an incredible machine that shows how far hypercars have come in the last 20 years, and it's probably one of the quickest track cars ever made. But what if you care more about high-speed drama than lap times? Well, few cars feel as extreme as the Aston Martin Valkyrie when you're driving on the limit. That car's screaming naturally aspirated V12 is one of the best engines I've ever experienced, especially in the AMR Pro version. But you can't talk about hypercars without mentioning top speed. And this is where cars like the Hennessy Venom F5 start to shine. This high-tech hot rod has massive twin-turbo V8 and rear-wheel drive, but it'll also do over 270 miles an hour. However, if you're about to sink a few million quid into a new car and you want to have your cake and eat it, the Bugatti Chiron Supersport is the only hypercar that gives you astonishing acceleration and incredible top speed and unmatched luxury. So if you suddenly become a multi-millionaire with only space for one car, the best daily driver would be a Bugatti Chiron Supersport.